Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at how you can make a private server system. This is made using something called the ReserveServer function of the teleport service. This is the developer forum article on it. I'll leave a link to this in the description if you're interested in reading it. If you're interested in a game that does this, if you look at Bloxburg for example, their neighborhood system is all coded using the ReserveServer function of the teleport service. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to script. So I have already made a very simple user interface. If you look here, obviously feel free to make your own, but if you just want to use the same as my one here that I've made, it is available in my Discord server, and there's a link in the video description if you would like to join it. So if you look at this GUI here, we have got a bunch of different panels. We have got a server list which shows all of the servers in the game, the private servers. We have got your servers, which shows all of the servers that you own. We have got join by code, so you can enter a code to join if you don't want to join by that. And then you've got the actual create server, which is this one just here. Okay. So to get started with scripting, I'm going to just get all of my instances ready. So we're going to want a local script first, and this will handle all of the GUI management. And then inside this local script, I'm going to put a regular script. I'm going to put an int value. I'm going to put a remote function, and I'm going to put a remote event. So if I'm going to rename this remote function to get server name. This will all become apparent why we're doing this later on. I'm going to rename the integer value to owner. And then inside of the script right here, and this is also going to be inside of my Discord server, I'm going to be using these two templates right here, which are just basically, if I open this up and we go to your servers, drag this right in, you'll see it's just this but as a template that we can then clone. Okay, so we'll first start off by scripting the local, running the local script. So what we want to do is, you may have noticed that inside of all these I have got a path object value that's going straight to the frame that we want to open. So we're going to start off by doing a for loop. And what this is going to do is it's going to scroll through and get all of the children inside of the frame. Okay, then we're going to check to see if the button is the class of the button is a text button, and the button dot name is not it's not the close button. And the reason we're doing that is because we obviously do not want to close the GUI sorry, we do not want to open a frame from the close button, because the close button's just this X here. Got my words jumbled up then. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to write out a mouse button one click function. So when this event is called, we're going to set all of the other frames to visibility to false. So we'll do in pairs script.parent.frame get children, do if v colon is a frame or v is a scrolling frame, then v.visible equals false. Okay. Oh, I didn't even call it a v, I called it frame. Whoopsies. Okay. So at the end of this, we then want to say button dot path dot value dot visible equals true. Okay. So that right there is going to allow this to work in theory. We have not got any errors, and as you can see when we scroll through here, it changes to the different frames, closing the ones in behind them. Okay, so if we go back to our local script, we want to code our close button to work. So when the close button is clicked, it closes this whole frame like this. So it goes from this status to looks like that. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is this button right here. We want this to open up the frame. So if we do script.parent.button.mouseClick connect function, and then we can say script.parent.frame.visible equals not script.parent.frame.visible, and what that'll do is it'll just set it to the opposite of what it's already set to. So if it's set to false, then it'll set it to true. If it's set to true, it'll set it to false. If that makes sense. So if you look here, I can click this and then it turns it off and on, or you can just click this and it closes it. So both ways work. That's what not does, it just sets it to the opposite, if that makes sense. So next thing we're going to do is if we go to frame and join by code.code input.change connect function, and then we can say it's script.remote event fire server, it'll send script.parent.frame.join by code.code input.text. Then what this is going to do is in our code join by code here, when somebody enters a code, it's going to, well, changes whatever's in the text here, which is the text input that you saw before. Whenever someone enters something into there, it's going to fire the server, so then we can alter our script from that point. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to code our get server name remote function. So we can do script.get server name on client invoke equals function return script.parent.frame.create server name input.text. And what that's going to do is whenever we call this from the server, it is just going to return whatever on the create server, whatever this right here is equal to. Okay. So the next thing that we need to code is our server script. So inside of here, the basic idea of it is we will have all of our services at the top, then we'll have all of the different buttons, then we'll have all of our data stores, and then we'll just go from there, if that makes sense. Let's just keep it nice and structured. So at the very top, we'll have our services. So the local DSS, which is our data store service, equals game get service data store service. If that makes sense. And then we'll do local teleport, I'll just say TS equals game get service teleport service. Then we'll do local chat equals game get service chat service. And we are not actually going to be using the chat service in this part of the tutorial. It's just there in case you want to add, well, you do want to add chat filters to this, so then players don't create explicit names for your servers. We are also going to be using the market. Yes, we'll also put in the marketplace service equals game get service marketplace service, and this can be used if you want to charge people for creating servers. Okay, and then we also local players equals game get service players. Okay, so we're not going to use the player servers actually. Okay, so next thing we're going to use is we're going to need our menu, frame, which is equal to gaze equal to script.parent.parent, and then that there is just a very simple another way for us to write change it to menu, which will change it up to here, if that makes sense. Then we're going to want our local create server button, which is equal to menu.frame.create button, and then local your servers button equals menu.frame.yourservers underscore button. And then we can do local join server button equals menu.join .frame.join by code.join button, and then local. That's how we'll just stick with that. And then we'll also put vars for our variables. We'll have local plr equals menu.parent.parent, and then we'll do local psid equals game.privateServerID. Then we'll do our data stores. So it's quite a lot of these. This is just allow us to keep track of all of our data for the game. So when someone creates a private server, it sticks, if that makes sense. So we're going to want our server access codes equals data store service get data store. We'll just put speech marks there for now. We'll fill that in a second. And then we are going to print that out a few times because we're going to save us writing it. Next one's going to be server names, which will be our codes. Then we'll have local own servers. Then we can have custom server join codes. Then we will have global pri server data store. Put data store on the end of all of these. That'll make it a bit easier to know that they're all data stores. Then we can have private server owner ID data store. We'll lowercase that. Then we will have server info data store. Okay, and then for the keys for the data stores, we are just going to set it as the same as the variable name. So you can go through, copy and paste them in just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to move this down here. Same with this, just so then they're nice and neat at the very top. And then in my vars, I'm also going to add local servers equals table, set to nil at the minute, and then local join server code ent as nil. So that's not actually set to anything at the minute. Okay, so now that all our prime variables were done, we can actually start coding. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fill this table right here with all of the servers that the player owns. And the reason we're going to do that is so then we can print out in the your servers everything that... Oh, sorry, my phone went off. I'll stick that on silent. So we can print out inside your servers all of the servers that you own. So we're going to start off by creating a p call. And the reason we're doing it in a p call is to just block out any errors, because there is a likelihood that we will get errors. So we're just going to start off with an in pairs loop, and then inside of here we can say local, we'll use this data store, local get servers get async plr.user id or nil if that doesn't exist. So if it can't actually find anything inside of here, it'll just return nil. And we'll say do table dot insert servers comma v print plr.name private server codes equals .v. Yeah, so that's going to put our private server inside of the servers table and also output it. Okay, so now we can start writing some of our functions, and these will be, we will call these several times throughout the script to do various things. So the first thing is we're going to generate server invite code, and then this is going to be used to generate a join code for the server that can be used here. So we're going to do local code equals math.random, and you can put whatever you want in here, but say if we want a 6-digit code, we're going to have 6 1s and 6 9s, so it will pick it'll pick a random number in between there. And then what we can do is we can say let me think. So we can say if server names DataStore colon get async code, then we'll say if not. So we'll say if the code does not already exist, then return code. But if it does already exist, because it's in a while true loop, it'll loop again. So it'll continuously run this until it finds a correct code. And the likelihood of you getting more than 1 million codes is quite low. Well, I say 1,900,000. So obviously if you do come with that, then you can add an extra few 9s to that, but you know, it's your choice. You can add as many 9s to that as you want. The more the merrier, I suppose, but the longer it is, the harder it's going to be to remember for your players. So just keep that in mind. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our global data store for the server list. I'm going to leave a link in the description to a very, very good video by the DevKing, which explains how ordered data stores work, which is what we're going to be used. So we're going to create a function called sort global private servers async, and then we're going to create a variable called pages equals global data store colon get sorted async false comma 100, and that means we'll have 100 on the page for I comma v in pairs menu dot frame dot server list dot colon get children. Then we can get rid of this. Okay, so inside of here we can write if v is a frame, then v destroy. So what we are doing is we are looking inside of here, inside the server list, to see if there's any that are there. If there is, we're just going to destroy them, and that's because we'll be updating this every minute just to make sure that it is up to date in case of crossover from other servers. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to actually get the data, so we can get current page. Okay, so that's getting all the data on the page, and then we can run our for loop in pairs data, and this is going to loop through the data table here and loop through the data table of all of the private servers. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to warn these just so then we can make sure that they're right. We're just going to warn v.value and v.key, and this will just allow us to see exactly what is being run through the loop. And then we're going to wait 0.2 just to give it a time to process in between each loop. So okay, so I'm going to grab let me think. Okay, so I'm going to grab our server info data store here, and this will be used to it'll be used to store the server's name, but you can store other things. So like for example, if you wanted to add a moderation system to this, which some games have, then you could add a table inside of the dictionary which contained all of the admins, for example, or something like that. It's your choice. So if we then go back down to here, we can say local server info dictionary equals server info DataStore get async v.key, and that's going to be the server's ID. Okay. We can also get our clone. So listed server. We'll say it'll just say server. What should we say? Yeah, we'll say server frame clone equals script.servers template clone. Then we can say listed, just copy that, clone dot parent equals script dot parent dot parent dot frame dot server list. Then we can say dot player count, because if we look inside of here, server template play count. So we can say player count dot text is equal to v.value dot out of, and then here after the backslash you can put however many or what your server size is. So I'm just going to set that to 20 for now, because we can set our server size to 20, but it's your choice how big you want to make your server. Okay. Obviously you'll have to change this in the Roblox settings as well, which can be done from your experiences dashboard. Okay. So, oh whoops, wrong thing copied. So if we go back to this, we can now change our server name text, and we'll set this to server info dictionary dot server name, and then this dictionary will be set when the server's created. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to dot join button dot mouse button one click colon connect function, and then this is, we're going to say whenever this right here is clicked, and it's inside of a loop, so we don't need to do it again. Okay, so we can grab our code, which is equal to server access codes data store get async v.key, and then we're going to go to the teleport service, teleport to private server game dot place ID. So we're going to teleport them to the same place ID, comma the code, and then inside of a table there. So if you wanted to transport several people at a time, I suppose you could put it inside of a table if you want to teleport the whole server for whatever reason, but I suppose it's an option if you wanted to do that. Okay. So after this point right here, you could write something which will change the player's screen to say teleporting to private server, just so then they don't spam it, but that's your choice. I'm not going to bother doing that for now. Okay. So next what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the instance of this game is actually inside of a private server. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to check to see if the length of the PSID is greater than or equal to 30, because that's how long a private server ID is. So we're going to say if it is, well, it's actually 33 characters, but we'll say if the PSID is greater than or equal to 30, then we're going to know that it is in a private server. So we can print private server, comma, PSID, okay? And then we're going to put an else. So if we're not in a private server, we can print public server, comma, PSID. And the reason we're outputting PSID then is just to double check. So then if you do notice in your server logs that it is constantly running this, then you can run back and debug it. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an integer value inside of replicated storage, and this right here is just going to be to store the owner of the private server's ID, so you can return back to that if you need to. So we're going to say game.replicatedStorage.private server owner value equals private server owner ID data store get async PSID. Okay, so the PSID is just the same as the v.key here. It's just the key is running through the data store, the ordered data store here, and the PSID is what's being set from the local server. Okay, so after this we're going to run through our loop. So iv in pairs servers tell you what, no, we don't need to do that. I was going to loop through just to check that the local where the script is the server owner, but it's not really necessary because we'll be using that. You can just use the one in replicated storage anyway. Okay, so now that that's done, down here we can say script.parent. Remember the remote event that we were firing from the client? So we can say when that's run, we can connect that to a function. We're going to pick up the player and the text that is transferred, and then we can say join the text that is entered is equal to txt. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our join server. Oh, whoops. Server button dot mouse button one click colon connect function. Okay, and then we can say if join server code entered is not equal to nil, so if they actually have entered a code, then we can say local id equals server names data store get async id, then we can say local code equals server access codes colon get async id. Oh wait, no, we need to put this variable inside of there. Yeah, that's right. So then we can say teleport service colon teleport to private server game.place id comma code, and then the exact same thing. We're going to transfer a table of who we want to teleport, which is just going to be the player which the script is in. Okay, so once again, you can just write something after this if you want to add some form of teleportation screen, as some games do, just like the same way that Bloxburg do it. Okay, so next function we're going to write, which we do need to write just one more, I think. Yeah, okay, so we're going to do update your servers list, and this function is going to update the servers in your category here. Okay, so as in the other one, the first thing we're going to do is loop through everything that is in there, so we can delete any frames that are already in existence, so they do not get overlapped. So we're going to check if the class is a frame, so we don't get rid of our UI corner or our UI list layout. So if it is a frame, then we're going to destroy it. Then we're going to loop through the servers table, because this table contains all of the player's servers as we entered them here. So in here we can say the local ID is equal to server names data store, server names data store get async v, then local server info dictionary, I've spelled that wrong, dictionary equals server info data store get async id, and then we can we'll say local your server frame clone, we'll copy this, equals script dot your server template colon clone, and then we can say dot visible equals true. I'll tell you what, no, we don't need to do that. So dot name equals v.i, so we're concatenating them together. We'll say dot parent equals menu dot frame dot your servers. We'll say dot join code dot text equals v dot server name dot text equals we're going back to this dot server name from our dictionary, which we're going to define later on for when the player creates a server, if they do. And the last thing, once again, is the join server button dot mouse button one click connect function, and then we're going to say local code equals server access codes data store get async ID, and then we're going to say teleport servers teleport to private server game.place ID comma code comma an array of all the players once again. Okay, and then down here we can say print, just to double check that everything's working, we'll say successfully loaded space comma plr.name comma as owned yeah, we'll just say their servers. That works. Okay, just to double check that everything's working. So last little bit that we need to do before we are done is we're going to write out our function, which will well, yeah, it is. We're going to write out a function which will create actually create the private server. So we can say create server button dot mouse button one click connect function. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create our server, and to do this we're going to do ID, we're going to do code comma ID, because that is what's returned of the teleport service reserve server. So that is going to create a server on the place ID, just like that. Okay, so we're going to create our new join code, and to do that we're going to run this function just up here. So we're going to just say new join code equals generate server invite code. So that's going to get us the join code, and then we can say global private servers data store set async ID comma 0. Okay, we can say custom server join codes set async ID comma new join code. Then we can say server names data store set async new join code comma ID, and then we can have server access codes data store set async ID comma code, and then we can have private server owner ID data store set async ID comma plr dot user ID. That's that done. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is set our dictionary of information, and that right there is what we have been calling up here, which contains all of our information for, well, in this case it's only actually got the server name in it. So we're going to say locals, well, the dictionary is equal to a dictionary by putting these curly braces in, and then we're going to say server name. Make sure that you spell it exactly the same throughout your script, because if you do not spell it the same, it's not going to error. It's just going to call whatever that's equal to, and if it's not equal to anything, it's just going to return nil, and it's not going to error. So make sure you spell it exactly right. Okay, so we can then say script.parent.get server name invoke client player. So that right there is going to invoke the client from this remote function here, getting the server name as we coded in our local script, if you can remember. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to say server info data store set async ID, comma, server info dictionary, and then we can say table dot insert servers, comma, new join code, and then we can say local, we'll just say underscore comma v equals pcall function local local own servers data store colon set async plr.user id comma server. And the reason we do that is just in case there is a discretionary, so we don't actually pull an error. So we'll say success comma just like that. Okay, and I'll put that on the same line. So now we can run our functions. So we can say update your server list and sort global private servers async, and that is going to run these two functions just to make sure they are up to speed. And then we can say no, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we'll just run the function again. So as soon as the player joins, that there will run. We can say player dot character added colon connect function update your servers list, and then we're also going to say while true do sort private servers async wait 60. So that's going to update the private servers every 60 seconds. Okay, so one final thing to do, which is what is going to store how many players in the actual game, is we need to add a player added event and a player removing event. So game.player added players, we'll just say players game.get service players dot player added colon connect function. So I'm just going to set this up here. So we can say so down here, let me just double check that I've spelled everything right. Yeah. So inside of this function right here, we're going to say we're going to double check that we are in a private server. So to do that, we're just going to write the exact same thing here, and then we can then say global private server like this. We can say psid comma we'll just call num of players, and then what we can do, we'll say game we'll say hashtag game dot players colon get players. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing, players dot player removing connect function. We're going to do the exact same thing, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say game colon bind to close function. So when the server's about to close, we'll say global private servers data store psid comma 0, just to make sure that we are set to 0 when the server closes, if that makes sense. Okay, so in theory that should be everything done. So now I am going to test it. So first, you cannot actually create servers from the from Studio because it doesn't allow you to run HTTPS services. So the first thing we need to do is, if we publish our game, it will just call it private servers for video. Let's call it that. Create it. Okay. If we go back to game settings right here, I'm going to have to go to, where's it at? Does it? I don't know if it lets me do it from here, where you can change how many people can join. No, I don't think it does. No. Well, anyway, we need to turn this on either way or another. So we can, I am just going to play it in here just to double check we don't get any syntax errors as soon as the game joins. Oh yes, we have. That's lovely. So get sorted async is not a valid member of, right, okay. So what I've done is, you can see with my global data store right here, I have said get data store when it's actually get ordered data store. Like that, okay? So if we now play, there you go, that's all working. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go on the Roblox website. There we go, pull her across. Oh, give me a second. Okay. Okay, so here is our video, our game right here. So if we set it to, if we go down to the places, we'll go to this, we'll say configure this place, we'll edit the access, we'll change this to 20, because remember that's what we changed in our script. So if we save that and play. For it to load. Okay, so as you can see here, we have got ourselves an error. That's because it did not publish in time. Give it a second. There you go. Okay. Now we'll join again. It's because I didn't publish it after I fixed that error. That's why it errored just then. Okay. Just give it a second to generate ourselves a server. Okay, so now that we're in, we can double check. Yes, we have no errors. So we can see all of this. If we go to create a server, we'll say test server. We'll say create server. Double check, see if we had any errors. Oh yes, how lovely. So cert async. So we'll go down to line 119 because that's what it says here. So 119 source. Am I wanting sort async or am I wanting set? No, I'm not. I'm wanting set. And I've spelled everything else correctly, haven't I? Yes, I think I have. Okay, so let's publish it by pressing Alt and P and pressing play. Let's see if it works this time. Okay, so now if we go to down here, oh, you can see that's saved in there. So we can say test, create, go your servers, there it is, and there's our server. Oh, we have had a couple errors though. So it is saying attempt to index nil with server name on line 63. So if we go down to line 63, it's saying server name, okay. Attempted, that's strange. Let me have a little double check, make sure I've spelled it all correctly. This is sort global. Yeah, that's all server name. So servers template, join code. Oh, that is strange. Give me a second. Let me just double check that that's working now. Maybe it was just a spelling mistake I didn't notice. That's usually what errors are, spelling mistakes. Oh no, we're still getting the error. Okay, let's have a look. So private servers in terms of index nil, line 63, we are calling to 159. So right, okay, so it's getting called there, and then on line 63 it is saying that something is equal to nil, but what? So attempted to index nil with server name. That is being cloned. It's setting the parent. It's going server template. Definitely this one. Yes. So the 7 name like this is definitely being cloned correctly. I don't know why that's yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a loading error, so we'll just have to stick that in a P call. It's just one of those little dodgy bugs. Okay, so we'll wrap that in a P call, and that'll fix the error. Okay. Okay, let's run that again. Save. Publish. Sorry. There we go. So let's say, yeah, with no errors. So if we then go to create server, test, name, create server. There we go. So now if we go to join it, give it a second, you can see it teleports us into our private server. And that's not loading. Okay, let me have a little check. It's probably something really obvious. It's not actually this P call, is it? It's probably something really obvious that I'm just not noticing. So let me have a look. Servers, server name. Server template, server name. If I play it, do I get the same error inside of Studio? I should, yes. Yeah, I do. So it's saying attempted next null with server name. Oh, right, okay, what's happened is down here, has this not been set correctly? Set ID. Right, okay, so yeah, that was because of the error before. So what we need to do is we just need to reset all of our data because of the error before. It didn't correctly save everything. So what we can do is we will just put a full stop on the end of all these, and hopefully that should fix it. By the way, that error is just there is because of the exiting. I should actually add something which prevents that. So we can add down here, we can add on our bind to close. Bind to close, we'll add this in as well. So it'll only actually do that if we're in a private server, remember. Okie dokie. So we'll publish that again. There it is. And we'll play it. See if that fixes our issue. Hopefully it does. Okay, so we should not have anything, which is good. We'll say VOS test, create server. We'll go to your servers, and we have for God's sake. Brilliant. Join button, line 64. So we'll go line to 64. It is saying that join button is not a valid member. So join, it's because it's called join server button. There we go. Yeah, so that there was fixed. So we can say join server button. There you go. Hopefully that's our last error. We'll join back. Should be fixed now. Just give it a second. Yeah, we can see our VOS test is just there. We'll join it. Still no errors, and it is still here. Okay. Oh, there's one little bug there. It's not actually showing it in the your servers. So your servers just here. Let's double check that table. Servers. We'll just put that bracket so we can see. Table insert. Right, okay, that's because user ID. Yeah, that was the issue. There we go. That should be fixed. 10th time lucky or something. An extra like 5 minutes worth of bug fixing on this already long video. Okay, 50 minutes. There we go. So, okay, so now when we create a server, we'll call it test. We'll create it. The only reason it didn't, this one here is not showing up is because of that error is still there. So if we then join the server, give it a second, this test should still be in here. There it is. The only reason, as I said before, this isn't showing up is because when this right here is, where was it? When we were getting this error right here, because I put in a capital S, the data for that wasn't actually saved correctly. So when you actually run it, it'll be absolutely fine. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me for this 50-odd minute video. As I said before, the source code for this is going to be inside of my Discord server. So if you do decide to do this, use this inside of your games, feel free to let me know inside of the Discord server and how it goes. So hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Adios.